The Democrats have finally won something, and it doesn't feel fake or forced. Welcome back to the channel. Tune in or go stout as we enter day 36 of the longest government shutdown in American history. The Democratic Party has rightfully started to shift the narrative away from woke back to the workers. While many people are saying this is a rebuke of Trump and his administration, which it definitely is, I think it also shows what happens when you run campaigns about affordability and how hard it is to survive as an American. And if I sound happy telling you this news, it's because I am. In my state of Georgia, I saw Democrats flip a Republican seat that has been Republican for over 20 years. In Virginia, we saw Democrats do a complete clean sweep, gaining ground in every single district of that state. And if you woke up to the news of Mamdani winning, you've already seen the crash outs on Twitter over this happening. Do I know if these politicians are going to make a huge change in the states that they were elected in? Honestly, I don't. While I told you I've been very skeptical on the Democratic Party, the possibility of enacting change is very possible if they focus on what matters. It never made sense to me why our generation had to keep picking between a 80-year-old man and a 78-year-old man, both of which really don't care about the working class or blue-collar Americans at the end of the day. It just made the Democrats seem so weak and reinforced the narrative that the party is just a bunch of out-of-touch wine moms. But when you look in reality, I feel like more young people lean left. The Republicans or the right wing has never really been a pro-youth party. And that's just not me saying it. That is like years of data that just show that young people will skew more Democrat based on their values. But in recent years and with all the inaction of that party, they have really lost that title and are just seen as a joke overall. But when you listen to your citizens and hear them telling you, we can't find jobs, we can't afford homes, the food prices keep increasing at rates that are not sustainable for anybody but the rich, if you listen and understand what they're telling you and where they're coming from, they'll usually give you enough trust to have their vote. I know, mind-blowing stuff. People already kind of know that this political game is very corrupt and doesn't lead to much change. This mindset has let a lot of people just allow the corruption in government to continue and spread, with hopes in their mind that maybe all the corruption that goes on at the top level will trickle down to me and my family. But I think with the Trump administration, we've really seen how bad corruption can get. When you have a president tearing down wings of the White House, it looks crazy on all levels, not just a dunking on the libs level. And I think as long as there's cameras and there's people with eyes, the optics of this administration will only get worse because there's really no value being seen by the average person. Especially as we enter day 36 of the shutdown, the stock market is on very shaky ground. Everything going on with the tariffs, the SNAP benefits. I know these are just early elections, but I think the biggest campaign tool has really just been Trump himself.
So somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it.
And I've said it time and time again, if the worker feels heard, the average person is willing to put their vote on the line for that candidate. But even with this win, that doesn't mean the party is guaranteed to win the upcoming midterms. One thing that absolutely pisses me off is just seeing the establishment Democrats, the same ones that forced politicians like Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg as the frontrunners of the party, come out of the woodworks to celebrate all the wins that happened last night. The results that we saw in Virginia, New Jersey, and a couple other states was primarily due to those campaigns doing the hard work. While some of those candidates got endorsements, I don't feel like the Democratic platform was the thing that amplified them to the top, especially with the New York race and Mamdani winning. They did nothing. They literally did nothing to help the candidates that were running except stay quiet. And you know what? Staying quiet has actually been the best thing they've done. This shutdown works because they're not responding to everything Trump says. Trump just says crazy stuff if you don't provoke him. But after Mamdani won, they finally decided to support what he's saying, and it's no surprise they're obviously going to go for the winning candidate, but they spent the entire election cycle saying that they would not back him, he's too extreme, he doesn't represent the Democrats, just for him to win and have them bend the knee to him in the end. And again, if you had a brain, you could tell that he was going to win. You have a failed Democrat who was disgraced when he was governor of the state versus a guy saying that he's not a part of the establishment, and all the media coverage backs that up. I'm not saying he's completely clean, but when you have billionaires, tech bros, the president, AIPAC, and every other crazy person on Twitter going against you, then hey, you might be the right pick. You might not be a cog in the machine like every other person has shown themselves to be. And I'm not saying that that's 100% the case. He could turn out to be a do-nothing mayor, but why are we so quick to forget history? This is exactly what Trump did in 2016 to win his party over. He was pushed out by the Republicans for so long until they had to accept him. I'm not saying that I want him to be just like a Trump, but this is what happens when you utilize populism for the left wing. If people are tired of the system, they're gonna show that in one of two ways. They're either not gonna vote at all, or they're gonna make a drastic swing from their previous position. And the Republican playbook of calling him a communist literally fell on its face. Just like how calling Trump a fascist falls on its face as well. While those taglines resonate with your base, most of the people that find themselves somewhat in the middle of all this political nonsense will pull back the veil to find out an answer for themselves. If you don't get it by now, America doesn't want gatekeepers telling them what is acceptable and using names to silence the masses. We hear this talk on the right, especially with what's going on with Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson, but this is true on every side. And while the conversation may be different on each side, the sentiment is the same. The parties can have honest conversations with the people that vote for them, or we can keep letting the AIPAC-funded cult control the narrative of both parties and make no progress. I think, personally, the very radical swing towards just populism of any nature is because the moderation that we've been putting up with hasn't led anywhere. We've been trying to make our voices heard, but it always just gets twisted once the people get into power. And once they have that power and use it for corrupt means, we're not even allowed to talk about it. We're just supposed to think that that person is a bad reflection of their party and not a bad reflection of the system. Many Democrats are going to take the time to dunk on the Republicans and say, oh, we're going to take over and we're going to do this. But the reality is, now that you have momentum, you need to have these conversations with people. We finally rooted out the main problem affecting most Americans, and that's affordability. And that might not be your main concern. You might be more focused on immigration or AI regulations or a slew of other problems. But if you don't fix the problem that everybody is seeing, that the checks are not going as far, the groceries don't last as long, and the hope just feels non-existent, then you'll have a really quick deterioration into chaos. And I think we're taking the right steps. I'm seeing the party move away from the Hassans and back to the party of the workers like it's usually seen as. And I know that's crazy to say, especially with Mamdani running as a democratic socialist, but this is not some new development. This was the case in 2015 when Hillary stole the election from Bernie. Either give the voters what they want or run better candidates. There's really no choice between that. The average age of Congress is in the 60s. I think it's like 65, and it shows. It's a bunch of old people telling you what's good for the country, even though they were the ones that ran it into the ground. And for everybody defending capitalism, like I'm a capitalist as well, I trade stock, I make money, you know what I mean? I'm not this socialist commie that everybody just puts on the Democratic Party. But the biggest push towards socialism has been this late stage capitalism that we've been seeing, where the top 1% controls more than the other 99%, and somehow the 99% get blamed for how bad the country is. I would say I hope this is a wake-up call to the Democratic Party, but time will tell. We've seen before that they're not the sharpest tools in the shed, and I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow manage to fumble this momentum. And before you say it's just two sides of the same shekel, I would have to disagree. While both parties do have serious issues, I will not take that away. When Biden was in power, everyone was expected to call out how bad he did, and now that Trump is doing a terrible job, we're all expected to be silent and just have no party affiliation at all. I feel like we can support our sides, but this idea that our vote or our voice does nothing is very nihilistic, and if it's true, if it's not true, I don't know, but I would rather say something than keep it in and be disappointed about where we end up. But again, what do I know? I'm just an unemployed guy playing Call of Duty. If you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, let me know down below. I do read the comments. Did the Democrats win bigly, or did the Republicans just not care about this election? If you haven't already, like and subscribe to join the thread. And with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
Transmission complete. Signal terminating. This is Ghost Thread, signing off.